about. So, welcome everyone. I'm so glad that you're here. And I thought we could talk about the Schumann wave that happened on the chart. So, I have a link to the live chart, and you can see this wave of energy on the chart right now. Some of you might have watched my video on it. What I did was I doubled the wave, and I had to do it about 3 times to get the image that I was looking for because as soon as I doubled the wave, so what I do is I reverse the chart and then I take the core image and I double it. And I'm going to explain why I think this is relevant in a minute. Well, when I do that and I doubled the image, I immediately recognized the outline that I was seeing, but I knew that I had to bring it together. What ended up happening is that by going to the center, the very center of the wave, and this is interesting, I had to go to the center of the wave at 40 hertz. And to me, what's interesting about that is the same hertz level as our spiritual brain waves. So to me, the image is intimately intertwined with something spiritual about the nature of humanity. Now, how can that be when the image ended up being a rocket? But there's a reach for the stars aspect here, right? There's the stars, the idea of space travel elevates us, it inspires us. And then the whole idea of being part of a galactic family of some kind, right, inspires many of us as well. We look up at the stars and we wish, dream, and ponder about the future. Mm. So this inspiration, I feel, is a part of this image. It's interesting because when I doubled the wave image, it looked different on the sides than it normally does. So normally, when I double the wave image, many times there's a look of a gate or like a gateway, right? There's a look of a church cathedral many times. And I like to use these images as hints of spiritual meaning, of what is the subconscious of humanity reflecting? And in a minute, I'll explain why I think that this ties in with the subconscious of humanity. So the church, right? The idea of a temple, that's something that resonates deeply in humanity. We've had temples to honor the divine, right? Throughout our history as human beings. The gateway, that's an obvious idea of a spiritual concept, moving from one state of being to another. But this time, I was so surprised when I saw the rocket, and not only that, but there's a rocket at the top and then the booster at the bottom. And then there was a man's face at the very top. And I explained all this in the video, and it's only 8 minutes, and it's linked in the chat. So you can also pull up the video silently or however you want and look at that. But it just, the image of the rocket this time with the SpaceX launch was so striking. Um, it was completely black and it was really outlined against the sky. And so then to see the reflection in the white resonance wave in such a similar shape was truly amazing. So the way that the wave presented differently was it from the center rocket image. So here's my pen. So from the center rocket image, let me just get myself on the screen so I can see what I'm doing here. So from the center rocket image, the wave went down and up. Okay. Normally it doesn't do that when you have a wave associated with this. Most commonly, the wave is going to taper off, right? And that didn't happen. I was really amazed by that. And one of the reasons that I think that it was like that is because the exhaust from the engines of the rocket just really came down, swirled, and went up. And it was a big part of the visuals that were kind of beamed out across the internet. You had these striking lines of, white, I don't even know what the technical term is, but there's a white smoke or white exhaust coming off of the rocket. And that's how it is, right? It pushes down and then it spins around. And that's what the wave looked like when you doubled it. It rose up at the edges, which is unusual. And so that's another reason why, for me, it really looked like a rocket that presented to us. The other really interesting thing was there were these pings on the chart. So if I look at the live chart right now, and I look at, see, right now on the chart, it's April 26th, and I'm recording this on the 25th. So on the 25th, between 20 hours and 21 hours on the live chart, which is page 7 linked in the chat, there's a ping at the end of the image. There's a space and then a ping, a vertical line that is really strikingly sort of lifts up off the page there. And there was one of those before the wave of white resonance went from almost 0 to almost 40 hertz as well. And then there's another one between 13 and 14 hours. So I think that the pings are, I don't know, I perceived it as a moment in time that was important. Like, this is an important moment in time for human history. And I don't know why. I know that this was sort of the biggest, heaviest rocket that has ever been tried. It obviously exploded after about 3 minutes, but, Elon Musk tweeted that they learned quite a bit about it. So, I feel that there's more to it here than meets the eye somehow. And so with Mercury conjunct Uranus at the new moon, that implies shocking communications or startling communications. So what I would expect is that at some point we'll have some information about what this rocket achieved or its what it was really about. Hmm. Interesting. Very interesting comment. Yeah, you could always, Invisible Gypsy texted that there was a face of our president, in the exhaust. So, you could always email it to me. If you email me at my contact page on my YouTube, I'll reply, and then you'll be able to email me the image, and then I can take a picture of it and put it on to put it somewhere, I don't know, on social media or wherever. Okay, so that's an option for you. All right, so now I wanna talk about why are the images important and how could it be possible that they would reflect human consciousness? So for me, there's no separation between the divinity that we are and the biology, the science that makes up how we would describe being human or the human form and the energy of the human form. And there's no separation between that and the energy around us. So I come to this from the perspective that the divine is in all things. You know, um, it's really interesting because several years ago, I was sitting at a table, I was volunteering and with some children. And one of the children touched the table and asked me to touch the table. So we were each seated apart from each other on the table. And so I touched the table after this person asked me. And she said to me, we are touching, see? And I mean, these children today are so amazing, aren't they? They are so far ahead in so many ways. But what the child was essentially saying was, there's no separation between if she was touching the table at one side and I was at the other, there's a divine connection through all things, through all matter, through all energy. And I loved that. I thought that was wonderful. Is it about frequency? Yes, right? Because frequency and the vibration of frequency through matter in part determines all things. It determines what the form and the shape of things are, what the colors are, what the presentation, what the materials are. But within that frequency, in my view, is the divinity of what things are. Yes. So I'm gonna stay focused here and respond to you guys' comments at a stopping point. So keep commenting and put any questions in that you might have, and then I will get to those after, a few more minutes. So essentially, because the Schumann resonance is from a range of 0 to 40 hertz, this is the same hertz range as human brainwaves, but it's more than that. We are electromagnetic beings, and the Schumann resonance is an electromagnetic spectrum. You might not know it, but our heart and all of our organs, our body emit an electromagnetic energy. And in my mind, this is a core part of the human energy field. And so maybe I'll draw a picture for you because I love drawing pictures of the human energy field. So I'm just gonna take a second here. I might already have one. Yeah. I have picture after picture of the human energy field in here. Okay, so this is kind of what I want to show you. And let me see if this will come out how I want. If I do it like this. Okay, here we go. All right, so here is a human being in their human energy field. All right, and I'm going to relate this with the Schumann. So that person is emitting energy. They're emitting from the brain. They're emitting brain waves, and those are from 0 to 40 hertz. And from the body, right, from the rest of the body, they're emitting electromagnetic energy. And we're emitting other things as well, like we're emitting heat, right? The heat of the body. And we're emitting the energy of the soul right here. See the heart right here? That's the soul connection within the heart. And so, in my view, all of these things form the human energy field right there. Now, how does this relate with the Schumann? Well, you might be aware, I'm sure you are, that there's a great subconscious aspect. There's a great subconscious aspect to the whole of who we are. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this energy field and I'm going to do this. Okay. And I'm going to take a minute here to just color it in. Yeah, this is one of my favorite things that I love doing, and I haven't been able to do it in a long time because I used to go to fairs and sit with people and draw their energy field for them and draw the energy of what was going on in their life for them. Okay, so here it is. Okay, here's the energy field, and there's the yin yang. Pretty cool, huh? So, because you might understand about the yin yang being darkness and light, right? So the whole of who we are comprises darkness and comprises light. Well, in the darkness of the whole of who we are, we have our subconscious and we have our shadow personality. Now, one of the things that I do when I work with people or we do our classes online or I do my human energy classes is we practice ways of bringing what's in the shadow to light because there's techniques we can use to notice these things. But the fact is, all right, that I am, if this is me, I am emanating from my field, right? From both the conscious and the subconscious, which is in the shadow. Isn't that awesome? Here, I'm going to write this down for you. Conscious and subconscious. Okay, now why is this important? The first thing I want to tell you is that I feel that it's really great to understand that you have a boundary around your energy field. And for those of you who have just joined, I want to let you know that we're relating the human energy field and the Schumann resonance. Okay. So now what I've done is I've drawn here's the person, and here's the yin yang of their energy. Here's the subconscious or unconscious or shadow. Here's the conscious. So when you think about the fact that you're emanating brainwaves or you're emanating energy or your thoughts or emotions, um, your thoughts or emotions. So what's going on there, right, is you think you're consciously emanating, and you are. But what we don't consider oftentimes is what is in the subconscious. And so this is where those of us who are intuitive, and many of you who watch my channel are intuitive, this is where those of us who are intuitive can read the subconscious imprints of energy. And so in the Schumann resonance, the most obvious subconscious, in my view, imprint of the energy was the rocket that showed up when I doubled the wave. So let me bring that back to this image here. This image here is the human energy field. So what I recommend when you think about your field is that you think about it having a boundary and that you concern yourself with the energy in your field. This is my suggestion. What about the energy that emits outward from the field? Especially if you are an empath, if you're sensitive, if you're focused on energy. Many of us who are like that want to send good energy out to people, flow it out. And the fact of the matter is, many people deplete themselves doing this because they don't understand how to fill themselves up first. That's why the meditation later will be about receiving and, and tying that to creating abundance. So so here's how I do my energetic practice. I transmit, right? And I only worry about what's in my energy field, and worry is not the best word. I focus on building my energy in my field, allowing the energy in my field to flow, okay? And to fill myself up. And what am I filling myself up with? I'm filling myself up with the energy of the soul that emanates and fills both the conscious side and the unconscious, the subconscious. Um, this is really big, okay? Because we have a source that is greater than what appears. We have a source of our own energy. And for those of you who've just joined, I'm tying this to the emanations of the Schumann resonance when I complete this thought. So we're filling our energy field, but we aren't conscious of the fact that usually of the fact that energy is emanating, right, from the field. And the other thing we're not conscious of is that energy is emanating not just consciously, right? Not just in the thoughts that we have, that we know about, but in those subconscious musings, right? Those subconscious everyday, like, um, you walk around and you have something kind of nagging at you. You walk around and you're dreaming on something. Well, you don't think about the fact that this is transmitting from you as well as what is conscious, right? So, what I like to do is I focus on filling myself up and managing the energy that is in my field. I give what emanates outside my field to God, no matter where it emanates from, of me, in me, whether it's a subconscious emanation or a conscious emanation. I give it to God and I let God flow with that energy, right? I don't try to control what is outside myself. And this is a core concept of self responsibility. But to get back to linking this to the Schumann resonance, what I said early on was that the images on the Schumann tend to repeat and, in my view, can be linked with spiritual concepts. I like to look at the Schumann resonance as a reflection of the subconscious of humanity. For sure, the brain waves of humanity are between 0 and 40 hertz, the same range as the Schumann resonance, right? And there's actually 4 resonances between 0 and 40 hertz. Are there ones above that? Yes. We're not gonna address them today because then I would have to say things like, maybe we have brain waves, at higher hertz levels that aren't normally discussed. Okay, so here's the thing. So if 7.7 billion of us are doing this every day, right, in a range of 0 to 40 hertz at least, because we know that's the brainwave hertz range, then isn't it possible that we would create a group field, and that group field would be something that could be almost tangibly felt, right? Especially by those who are intuitive. And, the most wonderful example of this is when you're thinking of something and your friend or family member or close person also starts discussing it with you. And, I feel that the AI engages and the computers start to engage with us as well on this because I was thinking about something for myself and I got an email um that was addressing the exact topic this morning, okay? So now another human was, thinking of it. The computer delivered it to me, so it was a part of the process. Okay, so it is it's just really phenomenal, isn't it? So I just wanna review this, okay? Let me get this out of here. Okay, so here's the human being, okay? Here's the energy field. Here's the yin yang, the conscious and the subconscious. Now, we all know that a large part of humanity was consciously focused on the SpaceX X launch on April 20th when it occurred. It was all over the news media, it was all over Twitter. And Twitter has a huge international following. I'm sure it was over other social media around the world as well. And so why was this why would it imprint? Why would it create an image days later? I'm gonna be honest, I don't know the answer to that. But what occurs to me is that we've been musing on this at the human collective. There's something about this launch that the human collect that's captured our imagination, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. And we could guess and think about why that is. But before we do that, I want to tell you about something else that's been going on in the Schumann, and I've not put it on Twitter yet. Okay, so I have not put it out. So this is a first reveal. You might have noticed on the charts um, since April 20th. Okay, the new moon was the 19th and the 20th. It was the 19th on the Pacific coast of the USA. It was on the 20th on the East Coast. It was at 12:12 AM on the East Coast. Now there was a full solar eclipse that occurred at 12:16 AM on the East Coast, okay? But the solar eclipse, went across Australia. So the best viewing for the eclipse was in Australia. Now, how does this relate with the Schumann resonance? I'm going to tell you in a second, but I need to set up the context of what was going on in the environment, in the electromagnetic environment of the Earth. Okay. So the eclipse went fully across Australia, and that's where the best viewing of the eclipse was. But it's a worldwide event, and it was a total solar eclipse at the peak, almost at the peak of the new moon. So it was quite meaningful. And I want to share something with you about eclipses that's important. And this is what you can see on the Schumann resonance. Now, if you go to Schumann Bot on Twitter, and there's a couple other accounts as well. There's Schumann Live, and there's a new German account. If you go to Schumann Resonance with a Z, you'll also see the history there of the charts. So those are 3 great accounts on Twitter to follow. Um, and thank you to you guys who create those accounts because it's just wonderful, that you put the information out there. I don't know how to do that tech stuff, but I do know how to read the chart. So, it takes all of us, right, participating together to get it done. So, okay, so what was I going to say? If you look at the charts, this is what was showing up, and you can see it as well on the current chart. So I'm going to tell you where this is on the current chart, which is page 7, and the link to it is at the beginning of the live chat. So what you can see at the top of the chart from 0 to 15 hertz, okay? And this is on the first day of the current chart, which was April 24th. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of these images on my Substack. So if you're not on my Substack, I don't know if I put a link to it in the video description. I will. You know what? I'm going to do it right now because this is important. I want you guys to sign up for my Substack, please. Let me just do this here. Publish. Let me just find my let me find my Substack link, because this is really cool. I would really appreciate it if you guys would, if you like my content and it resonates with you, if you would sign up. There it is right there. And you can see my 2 recent Schumann articles. I also talked about the astrology, and I have some cool human energy posts as well on there. One of the neatest ones is, unconscious and conscious permissions. My Substack is a newsletter. So it's like an online magazine that I have, and I post articles and descriptions on there of the Schumann resonance. I send it out 2 or 3 times a week, and so you can get a copy of that. You'll get it right to it's an app, or you can get it online. And so please sign up for that because that's where I'm going to put all the images from this after I write the article that goes with this video. I'll put all the images that I'm describing here. So what I want to talk to you about is the images on the Schumann related to the solar eclipse. Now, you wouldn't know this unless you understand how energy works at a solar eclipse from a well, I guess from a spiritual and energetic perspective. So if we go to the live chart, which is page 7, and the link is at the top in the chat right now, and you look at the first day, April 24th, between 0 and 15 about hertz, what you'll see is a couple of really striking images that are white and red, and they're small. So one of them is between about 2 and 4 hours on April 24th. The other one is between about 15 and 16, but there's a lot of red up there. There's some white resonance and yellow and of course green, but there's a lot of red. Now, I don't know if you noticed this if you follow the Schumann, but for several days before the eclipse and after, you started to see these little red and white images from 0 to 15 hertz. And because I've seen this before, I knew what I was looking at, and, I wanna explain that to you now. When you have a solar eclipse, here's what happens spiritually, okay? We're gonna use this for the sun because all I have is a blue and white disk, and so what happens is the moon, of course, passes in front of the sun, and you can't see the sun shining, right? So, the sun emulates spiritually the connection of the human being with the soul. So now I'm explaining to you a link between the images at the solar eclipse on the Schumann resonance and the energies. But at first, I have to explain to you the energies because most people don't know this. Okay, so unless you're in the old times in a mystery school, This is the kind of stuff they would teach there, okay? That's the kind of stuff that I teach when it comes to energy. So basically, here's your subconscious, here's your conscious, here's the human being, here's the heart and soul connection, here's the energy field, the conscious aspect of the field, the subconscious and sometimes unconscious aspects of the field. Okay. And here are the emanations that go beyond the field, whether they are from the brain or otherwise. Um, so let's see here. I just got to link all this together. Mhm. So when the moon eclipses the sun, the example here, and I'm just going to declare a space of sacred discharge imbued by the violet flame. I'm declaring that because I'm going to discuss a difficult spiritual concept, but one that's important to understand the energies. So I'm also going to bring in spiritual protection in the form of Archangel Michael, who is the embodiment of divine will, protection, security, because when we follow divine law, we are protected, and that's divine will. Um, divine law is exercised through divine will. All right, so now here's the concept. Here is the soul emanating light through the human being and love. Here's the moon. It comes over and covers the soul. Okay, this is the difficult spiritual concept. And the reason that I say it's difficult is because if you have this condition in the body, which I did have, okay, I'm going to share that with you. I had that for sure. And let me tell you what it's like. It's terrible. You cannot feel love. I mean, I found it was terrible, but I didn't know that it was terrible until one day I had the desire to feel love, and I didn't even know. Here's where I was on that. I was in the subconscious and in the unconscious. Maybe we'll use that little dot for the unconscious. So the eclipse, the total eclipse of the sun emulates this condition of detachment, right? Of inability to feel love, to connect with the soul. Now, the soul keeps us alive, even if we can't feel that connection. Thank God for that. That's divine grace at work. Okay. So, oh, thank you, Coco. Yes, please hit the like button. That'd be so great. And if you guys could check out my Substack, I just put the link up there and subscribe. That would be wonderful. And if any of you would love to do a paid subscription, I would be grateful for that as well. So I'm grateful for any way that you support me, even if it's liking the video, if it's sharing the content. These things are incredible helps for me, because it helps get my work out there, and there's nothing I like doing more than speaking with all of you and anyone else who's interested. So thank you. I really appreciate it. All right, so now we're linking the emanations of the human with the Schumann and specifically what happened at the solar eclipse. Okay, so we get the covering of the heart. The moon goes over the sun representing the soul connection, the connection of divinity emanating through the living human form. Now, one day I realized that I was in this state. And let me tell you something, it was quite disconcerting when I actually realized I could not feel love. So, the meditations that I'm teaching, and those are all in my live stream playlist, I go through how to reopen this connection, how to move off what is usually like a manhole cover off of the heart, okay? Now, when you move the manhole cover off the heart, and usually what happens is this energy starts to crack up, and then the light starts shining through the cracks. You start to feel love, okay? And then eventually it moves off. Well, as you do that, usually you have energy field clearings to do. There could be past lives, there could be entities. There's usually a ton of cords to people you've known, cords to people who are stealing your energy, whether with your permission or without. There's just all sorts of energetic things to clear up and manage. And this is what I refer to as personal energy field management. Okay, so as the soul becomes uncovered, right, all of this stuff lifts off. And you can imagine that some of this is from the subconscious. Some of it is in the unseen. We do not necessarily see entities with our eyes, hopefully, because if you see them with your eyes, that's a whole nother level, and one that usually requires shamanic assistance. So if that's the case for you, then shamanic assistance is the answer. I don't provide that level of support, but I know people who do. Hold on a sec. Hold on a second. Wow, that was intense. Just give me a minute to get settled. Ah. Yeah. Okay. It's a big deal for me to talk about these things with you guys. I know that that might not seem like a thing from your perspective being the audience, but it's taken a lot of years for me to get here to where I felt comfortable. And I've been working on this literally, I mean, since childhood. But I was guided early on in my life to not speak about it. And it took years for me to get comfortable speaking about this. So thanks for hanging in there with me here. So what I'm saying is that when the sun and the moon have an eclipse in the sky. So here's my blue and white sun, and here's the moon going over, okay, and covering it. As the moon covers the sun, there is a release of this kind of energy in the atmosphere of our planet. Yes. Okay, I mean that. I'm declaring a space of sacred discharge and invoking the violet flame, which transmutes negative energy to a state of unconditional love. So when there's an eclipse, and as soon as the moon fully covers the sun, you then have a release of these entities. And as the moon comes off, as it lifts off, right, of this connection with the sun. And of course, these are in space, they're far from each other. But as it lifts off of that covering, there is a release. And what I'm saying is that it's a good time to protect your energy field, but it's also a time where energy can lift off of you that you've had trouble moving, right? Where things have been stuck that you've wanted to let go. And so in the Schumann resonance for the days before the eclipse on April 20th in the morning, and it was on the Schumann resonance chart on April 20th at 11:16 a.m. Okay, that's when the solar eclipse was on the Tomsk Space Observing System chart. Well, when that eclipse happened and the days following, you have seen all these little red and white things up in the 0 to 15 hertz levels. And what does 0 to 15 hertz represent in terms of our brain waves? Well, if I look at the image that's on the current chart, right, at April 24th from 15, actually, let's start with the one from 3 to 4 hours, okay? And I'm going to quickly just put this link in the chart so that you in the chat so that you don't have to go all the way back to find it. Okay. Now, between 0 and 8 hertz at about 3 a.m. in the morning, at the very beginning of the current chart, what you see there is this little, like, doubled white line of energy surrounded by red and, oh, another white line surrounded by red, and they're smack right together like this, okay? One of them's longer and one of them's shorter. So most of this energy is between 0 and 4 hertz. So it's actually about maybe that's about 2 1.5 to 2 hertz where it starts, and then it extends, a lot of it is in that range between that and 4 hertz. Well, that is our unconscious. Then between 4 hertz and 8 hertz, it extends, but that's mostly the red, okay? The white energy was in the unconscious aspect. So as it extends, it's between 4 and 8 hertz, which is what I like to refer to as the dream time or the subconscious. And I don't know about you guys, but in the days since the peak moon, new moon, and the eclipse, and prior, I've been having a lot of dreams in the fourth dimension or the astral. And a quality of dreaming in the fourth dimension is that there's a lot of people, it looks like Earth, it looks like your daily life. But sometimes the situations are strange, the emotions are strange, the people are strange. And that's the astral. Okay. The astral has your range of energy from positive to negative, okay, and experiences and entities and individuals in that range. So if you're dreaming in the astral, that's the energy. So of course, God always protects you. So invoking God, invoking Jesus Christ, invoking Archangel Michael. My background is Christian, so Mother Mary, I like to invoke. You can evoke the high spiritual beings to be with you and protect you and to remove you from the astral if you are dreaming in the astral. So that's, if I'm going to talk about something that is if I'm going to talk about something that is not a great energy, I want to always be able to give you an antidote or a process. Otherwise, I'm not going to discuss it because there's no hopelessness here. There's only capability, competence, understanding, and sometimes questions, right? When we don't know the answer, but ask and you shall receive. So there's also another set of red and white energy on the first day of the current chart, and that's between 15 and 16 hours on the 24th of April. Well, in that energy, there's another white little kind of burst, and it's surrounded by very matrixy, like very horizontal lines and vertical lines, very matrixy shapes, and it starts at about 4 hertz. So it's got a little bit into the unconscious, but it mostly starts in the dream time, okay, in the subconscious. But it's right there. It's fully formed at 8 hertz. And so what does this mean? It means experiencing this in the waking stage. It means experiencing that shift, and maybe you even see energy come off of you. Maybe you see a habit that you were doing that you were able to shift and change. But this is the kind of energy that we're in. And so, again, with this same image, the white resonance extends to about 12 hertz. Now, that's the alpha state from 8 hertz to 12 hertz. So you may be observing, as I said, and then the red extends all the way to 15 hertz. So now you're getting into the beginning of the low beta brainwaves. And what is that about? That's about the basic thought process, right, that we have as human beings. So I might be having some basic musings, thought wise, analytically, like, wow, I had that habit and I was just able to make this shift. So I want to take a second here and address the aspect of um, I want to address an aspect of spiritual warfare here, because what I said with the solar eclipse, now I've tied it to the Schumann and to images in the Schumann. In my view, this is what appeared around the solar eclipse, and this is why it appeared that way. But as I mentioned, when you have the sun shining, my blue and white sun in this case, and you have the moon pass over, and then you have a release of energy that usually cannot be seen because the light is too bright, right? So now I wanna tell you a story of what happened during the August 21st, 2017 solar eclipse. And in this solar eclipse on August 21st, 2017, this is the one that went all the way across the United States of America. So it was visible it was visible across the country here. And that's, it's unusual, right, for it to be so close. Um, well, I was in, I was on the West Coast, and I wanted to go see it, but I checked in and prayed about it, and every time I prayed about, "Should I go to this location where it's supposed to be great?" I got no. "Should I go to this location where it's supposed to be great to see it?" I got no. So, I ended up being, not going anywhere and staying at home. Well, as you may know, if you've visited the West Coast, we get a lot of cloud cover at times. And the night before, I got in my car and I drove all the way, to the San Francisco area, and in fact, actually, I drove into the city that day. I don't know, I just felt called to go and look at the city before the eclipse, right? To go and just check the energy of the city. And it was so amazing because I saw the cloud cover coming in, and I had this idea, I'm not gonna be able to see the eclipse, on the West Coast. And I thought, San Francisco's not gonna be able to see the eclipse. Isn't that interesting? And of course, I saw great big angelic protection. I mean, when you think of San Francisco, remember that it is named after Saint Francis. So, although the energy of San Francisco is what it is, it was founded, right, with that connection to divinity underneath everything else. Just remember that. Well, anyway, the next day, I was, of course, back at my house, and I was as I said, I was on the West Coast, and I looked outside in the morning, and I thought, "You know what? It's gonna be foggy." And I looked at the maps, how far would I have to drive to get out of the fog and all this kind of stuff. And, I checked in and I prayed about it, and I got, "No, don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere." So I followed my guidance. So I'm telling a story about the eclipse, the full solar eclipse on August 21st, 2017. And so what happened was that during the height of the eclipse, the peak, I thought, "Okay, well, I'll go outside and I'll check the sky." I went outside, and for sure, it was completely covered with clouds. But as I looked up, now remember that I see in energy, okay? So I can see in energy. And what does that mean? That means if someone works with me and they give me permission, then I can see images or get impressions of what the energy is like in their field. I can also get impressions of like something that's occurred in their life. If they need to discuss that or do a healing around it, I can get impressions of something that's occurred in a past life. Um, it's called clairvoyance, but some people have the ability to feel, to sense, to know, to hear. Well, anyway, as the eclipse was at its peak, I looked up in the sky and I couldn't believe what I saw. And I'm gonna invoke the violet flame in the space of sacred discharge because I'm not invoking here. I am just telling a story in a space of neutral. And the violet flame is an energetic technique to convert energy back to a space of neutral. So I looked up and I just saw a ridiculous number of demonic beings just flying around in the air. And I couldn't believe it. I just thought, "Holy goodness, who would have thought that this is what was gonna be happening at the eclipse?" But then, it turns out as I researched and learned afterwards, for example, in the American Indian traditions, there was a big tradition of staying indoors during these events, and now we know why. Well, anyway, I looked up there, I got a sense, "Okay, this is what's going on," and I went back inside. And the wonderful thing about that happening is, then I could pray about it. and I could give it to God, give that energy to God. I could invoke the violet flame across the sky, in alignment with the highest good. Um, but I could also learn about it so that I could talk to you about it right now here. And understand, right, why this might show up on a chart like the Schumann resonance. So you see, to me, this is a part of the proof, right? When I look and I see this in emanating from the subconscious as we are approaching an eclipse and then coming off of an eclipse, and I see these little kind of red and white, sort of angry images or strange images, or, they look like, what they look like? They look like your typical genie, right? With the little tail, sometimes. And again, violet flame over that. That's what it looked like on the Schumann to me. So again, this will be in my Substack article that I'll send out in the next day or so. I'll put, I'll just note where in the chart I'm talking about in the article. So if you don't want to go check the chart right now, or you want to see it in print, then just follow me on Substack and you'll see it there. All right. So now I want to tie this back to what we were talking about initially, which is what I said was at the beginning, right? I drew you this figure. Here's a human being. Here's the heart connection. And here's the energy field. So I view looking at the field as having an exterior that's tangible. I have a boundary to my field. Nothing is permitted in or out of the field that's not in alignment with my highest good and other energy parameters that I set. Okay, which I'm not going to list now, but this is what I teach in my human energy workshop. So you can manage the energy in your field and fill the energy of your field with the light of your own soul. What emanates from the field, though, in my view, is a part of the collective consciousness. And I feel that the Schumann resonance reflects the collective consciousness. And so it reflects our positive experiences and our negative experiences. It reflects our hopes and dreams. It's like the writing on the cave walls, from some of our ancient civilizations. That's all that we have left, right? We have the impression of images. And why can we understand them? We can understand them because they're shaped like people, they're shaped like animals. And we see this in the Schumann resonance. In my video from today that's linked in the chat, it's the YouTube video linked in the chat. You'll see that there was an image of eyes, a nose, and a mouth that was so clear after the energy shift of the new moon and solar eclipse. It was the next image. And that image was incredible. And I showed you in my video how I thought it looked like a dog, but not just a dog, the kind of dog that watches. And if you've ever had a dog like this, you know what I'm talking about. Or if you've had a dog and you walk the dog at night and see the dog zero in on something and you do not know what it's looking at because you can't see it. But this is the type of energy that showed right after the eclipse. And so an eclipse energy lasts for 6 months. So these energy themes that we've seen on the Schumann, the rocket inspiring us, right? The liftoff, taking off, the release of this negative energy from our plane that we exist on, but also individually, right? Where we can shift habits or release something we've always wanted to let go of, or we've wanted to let go of for a long time. And this idea of the watcher, it's really interesting. Dogs are so amazing, right? Because they have a sense. They can sense things that we can't always see. And so I had a German Shepherd, and this German Shepherd, when we had people come to the house, there was one time where a man came to the house. everything seemed fine to me. I was living in a different country at the time, and he came in to fix the washing machine or whatever. It was so fascinating because my German shepherd would not leave me, and as I was speaking to the man, my German shepherd put himself between me and the man. And I thought, "Wow, that's really weird." Because 'cause I'm only I was conversational space, right? I was maybe 4 feet from my face from him, and my dog was right there. And I thought, "Wow, my dog's telling me something." So, I stepped back from him, and that's where we were walking out, right? He was leaving the house, and he left the house, and I didn't get any closer to him. I let him get his distance and leave. Well, it was interesting because suddenly as he slightly turned, I saw that he had a tool, okay? The tool went from his hand, like, all I'm not kidding you, up his arm. It was like the biggest I don't know, was it a screwdriver? I don't know, it was something, like, really long, and, I don't know if he needed it to fix the washing machine or if I was just really lucky that I had a German Shepherd with me who would have given him hell, basically, if he had made a wrong move. So, watchers are important, aren't they? They're important because there's a transmutation that occurs with the watcher energy, and that is that on a dime, in a moment's notice, the watcher can shift to the warrior. And when the watcher shifts to the warrior, it's a complete transmutation of energy. It's one state of being, bam, new state of being. And in the new state of being, the warrior already has the sword drawn and is already moving.